Hello everyone, this is Mr. McMillan, and I'm here with a check video, basically semi-instructional, semi-not, on the volume of compound shapes. And so what we are going to do in this video, we're going to go through the first 4 here. You can try number 5 and 6 on your own, and then you can check your answers for those after the video's done, or after that part of the video is done. So let's look at number 1. So when we're finding the volume of compound shapes, the first step we always want to do is determine what shapes we're looking at. So here in number 1, you'll see that we have a rectangular prism on the bottom, and then we have a triangular prism on top. So we have a rectangular prism and a triangular prism. So what we need to do is determine the volumes of both of these in order to determine the volume of the total compound shape. So we're going to start with the rectangular prism. And again, you do get these formulas on a test, so make sure you make use of the formula sheet. There is one posted in the Google Classroom. So the rectangular prism volume is given to us by the length times the width times its height. So what is your length, width, and height of the rectangular prism in this case? Well, your length would be 16, width would be 4, and your height would be 6. So V equals length times width times height. So we take 16 times width of 4 times a height of 6. And so if we do that, then we get 384 feet cubed for the volume of the rectangular prism. All right, now we have one last shape to find, and we want to find the triangular prisms. Well, the volume of a triangular prism is given to us by the formula big B times H, where big B is the base area of the base of the triangular prism. Now, the reason it's called a triangular prism is because the bases are in the shape of a triangle, okay? So to find our base area of our base, we need to find the area of this triangle. So the area of a triangle is given to us by 1/2 times its base times its height. So if we were to do that, their base area is given to us by 1/2. The base of this triangle is 12, and the height of this triangle is 9. So 1/2 times 12 is 6, times 9 is 54. Now we need H. Now it's important to note that H is not the same thing as the height of the triangle. This H is the height of the triangular prism. So if we were to set this on its base, this side would be the one that would be standing up. And what is the length of that side? Well, it goes across all the way this way, and it's parallel to this one. It's congruent to it as well. And this side is equal to 4. So the height of our triangular prism is 4. So we plug those in. So we have 54 times 4, which gives us 216 feet cubed. We're not done yet. We found the volume for both, but now we need to add those together. So the volume is going to be 384 plus 216, which when you do that gives you 600 feet cubed. So your answer for this, for number 1, would be 600 feet cubed. All right, let's look at number 2. Now, number 2 is somewhat of an interesting shape here. What shapes do you see making up this entire thing? Well, in the middle here, you see that we have a cylinder. So I'm going to write the cylinder in red. And the hemisphere on top, and we have a hemisphere on the bottom. Now, the thing about these hemispheres, the hemispheres are identical. And the reason for that is you notice that they're both flush with the cylinder. So when we find one of the hemispheres, we already know the other one. If we were to put those two hemispheres together, if this cylinder wasn't here, then these two hemispheres would just form one sphere. So when we're finding the area for this, all we need to do is find the area or the volume of the sphere itself, because we have two hemispheres, both of them would combine to make the whole sphere. So let's find the sphere first. So the volume of a sphere is given to us by 4/3 pi r cubed. So what is the radius of our hemisphere? Well, the radius of our cylinder is 6, and these are sitting on top of it, so the radius of our hemispheres would be 6 as well. So 4/3 times pi times 6 cubed. So if we were to plug that in our calculator, it does say to use pi equals 3.14. So we take 4/3 times 3.14 times 6 to the third power. And that gives our volume of the total sphere of 904.32. Now, since the hemisphere, there's two hemispheres here and they're identical, they make that entire thing. So normally if you only had one hemisphere, you would divide this in half, and then that would be the volume of the hemisphere. But this time we have a full sphere because we have two identical hemispheres. All right, so now let's find the cylinder's volume. So a cylinder's volume is given to us by pi r squared h. The radius of the cylinder is 6. Sorry about that. So our radius is 6, and the height of our cylinder is given to us as 11 meters. So we use 3.14 for pi, so 3.14 times 6 squared times 11, and that gives us 1,243.44 meters cubed. So now we have the cylinder and both of the hemispheres, so we add those together. So we take 904.32 plus 1,243.44, and we get 2,147.76 meters cubed. Okay. All right, so let's look at number 3. So number 3, what shapes do you see? Well, you should see up here that we have a hemisphere, and the reason we have a hemisphere is because it's just half of a sphere. We only see half of it. So this is a hemisphere. And then our shape on the bottom here, this side's 8, this side's 8, this side's 12. This would be a rectangular prism. Okay, so we're going to find the volume of the rectangular prism first. So the volume is given to us by length times width times height. The length of our rectangular prism is 8, the width is 12, and the height is also 8. So we take 8 times 12 times 8. And so we get our volume for the rectangular prism is equal to 768 centimeters cubed. Now we need to find the volume of the hemisphere. Well, a hemisphere's volume, we only have one of them this time, so we still need to determine what the volume of a sphere is. Well, to find the volume of what a sphere is, we need to have the radius of the sphere. So if you'll notice here, this hemisphere is laying on top of this rectangular prism. And you see this edge right here to this edge right here is straight across here. That's your diameter. So here, that side would be equal to what? Well, the diameter would be equal to 8. This side's 8. This side would also be 8. So your radius, though, is not 8 because your diameter is 8. Remember, your diameter is half the radius. So for the hemisphere's volume, we're going to have to use a radius equal to 4. So the volume of a sphere is given to us by 4/3 pi r cubed. So we get 4/3 times pi. R was 4 and then cubed. So when we do that, type all that in, make sure to use 3.14 for pi. We get 267.95. Okay. But here's the thing, that's the volume of the entire sphere, not the hemisphere. A hemisphere is only half of a sphere. So in order to find the volume of the hemisphere, we have to take this and divide it by 2. So the volume of the hemisphere ends up being 133.97 centimeters cubed. So now we have the hemisphere and we have the rectangular prism, so we add them together. So 768 plus 133.97 gives us 901.97 centimeters cubed. And number four, what shapes do you see? Well, you should see on the bottom that we have a rectangular prism. And on the top, you should see that we have a triangular prism. So we'll find the rectangular prism first because it's the simplest. So the volume of a rectangular prism is given to us by length times width times height. So we have 14 as our length, 9 as our width, and 8 as our height. So the volume is going to be equal to 14 times 9 times 8. So when we plug that in, 14 times 9 times 8, that gives us 1,008 inches cubed for the volume. Now we need to determine the volume of the triangular prism. So the volume of a triangular prism is given to us by base area times height. I'm doing this in the wrong color. Apologies. Base area times height. And again, it's called a triangular prism because the base is in the shape of a triangle. So to find our base area, we have to find 1/2 times the base of the triangle times the height of it. So the base of the triangle, here is your base of the triangle. That's the one it sits on top of, right? It's sitting on that edge. Well, that's also an edge of the rectangular prism. And you'll see that that edge should be equal to 14. So the base of our triangle is 14 as well. And then the height is given to us as 5. So 1/2 times 14 is 7 times 5 is 35. And then again, the h in our original formula is the height of the triangular prism. So that would be this side, because when you set it on the triangular face, that side's going to be pointing upwards. So that side is equal to 9. So the height is 9. So we take the volume, we have 35 times 9. And we get our volume is 315 inches cubed. Okay. All right. I want you to do numbers 5 and 6 on your own. In the next video, I will go over how to do these. That will be in the next instructional video before we talk about similar 3D shapes. So thanks, guys. I hope this helped. Remember, you can also do the same thing with the surface area. All of these just happen to be volume, but in a future assignment, there will be some surface area ones. And if you go back and watch the video on the initial instructional video, there are some surface area ones as well. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.